Hello and welcome back to Pain-Free at Any Age. In the last video, I covered the 3 states of autonomic nervous system activation and touched on their relationship to posture and pain. By now, you've hopefully downloaded the chart and begun to recognize and acknowledge the various states of activation that you go through over the course of a day or week. But what causes your brain to misfire, get stuck in a survival state, and hold on to tension that you don't need? In this video, I'll explain how the old trauma, blocked emotions, and beliefs can be at the root of pain and tension in your body. I'm Sukie Baxter, founder of Whole Body Revolution, and I help you to rewire yourself for greater health, happiness, and success. Physical tension is an artifact of the frozen stress response in your body. Have you ever watched a nature special and watched the lion chase down the gazelle? At the moment that the animal is caught, she goes limp in the jaws of the predator as though she's already dead. But if the lion gets distracted by something else and releases her prey for a moment, the gazelle is up and sprinting again like she came back to life. Animals are a great example of how we as humans handle stress at the biological level, only they don't have a cortical thinking mind to tell themselves stories about how they should react. In the face of life-threatening danger, first, you'll run or you'll fight. If you're caught, your parasympathetic nervous system takes over and shifts you into dorsal vagal shutdown, basically anesthetizing you so you don't feel the pain of death. This can look like fainting after receiving a fright, or in cases of prolonged stress, it can be lethargy, depression, disinterest in activities, and general dissociation. When a person has experienced trauma, be it physical or emotional, or more usually some combination of both, circumstances in your life that parallel the original event can trigger your nervous system to shift back into the survival state, even if there's no present moment danger. Let me share an example from my own life. When I was 2 years old, I broke my leg badly. Somehow I'd fallen down some stairs the evening before and developed a fracture that didn't hurt at the time. But the next day, I was playing chase with my brother, running through the kitchen of our house, and I put my weight down on my right leg and it gave out in a flash of searing pain. I was only 2 though, and I didn't know what had happened, and for some reason the hospital told my mom on the phone that I'd probably just bruised my kneecap and there was no need to bring me in. So I was in pain for 3 days before my mom finally took me to see a doctor. They put me in a cast and my leg healed, but years later, when I was 14, my father was living in Park City, Utah, and he got me skiing lessons for Christmas. I was so excited to learn to ski, but once I got to the top of the bunny slope, I had a meltdown. It took me an hour to get to the bottom, and I was terrified, in tears, and near hysteria. At the time, I had no idea why I panicked skiing. I just kept saying, I'm slipping, and everyone around me would roll their eyes and say, yeah, you're supposed to be slipping, like that's how skiing works. And what I understand now is that the instability of sliding down the hill mimicked the instability that I felt as a 2-year-old when my leg gave out while running, and it triggered that old trauma. This is how our nervous systems work to keep us safe. They learn from experience, and when they encounter a similar experience later, they respond to protect us. But it's not just our physical injuries that shape our trauma responses. Emotional injury is just as impactful. In fact, social rejection causes the exact same pain centers in your brain to light up as would if you suffered a physical injury. In one study, children who were bullied in school showed elevated blood levels of a stress marker called C-reactive protein as compared with children who were not bullied. Now, C-reactive protein indicates inflammation, and inflammation is an underlying cause of pain. You cannot have an emotional experience without also having a corresponding physical reaction, and the two are so deeply intertwined that it's impossible to separate them. For example, you may have had an angry father who yelled at you a lot, and every time he did, he'd poke your shoulder with his finger. As a child, you couldn't fight back because you were too small, and you couldn't leave because you didn't have the resources to do so. And so your body's fight or flight response became frozen in muscle tension around your shoulder. Maybe you've had doctors look at your shoulder and take images, but no one can find a problem that would be the cause of your pain and tension. The joint looks normal, and yet your muscles simply will not relax. If you paid attention, you might notice that your shoulder got worse every time someone raised their voice. Or maybe the tension is linked with an emotion like shame or powerlessness or fear, for example. It could be a combination of all of these elements. This is an example of a micro-stress response locked in a particular part of your body. When your nervous system is in this activated state, all the stretching in the world will not force your muscles to relax. You are locked in a tug-of-war with your own brain. Therefore, in order to get your muscles to relax and lengthen, we have to first turn off the on switch in your brain, like cutting off the power to an electric fence. This drives a wedge between your circumstances and your conditioned response. It also begins to unravel patterns in your brain and rewire your nervous system for new, healthier responses. Unfortunately, a lot of people who have this stored stress in their bodies don't recognize it. You may even feel fairly good about your life. Dr. David Hanscom, spinal surgeon and author of Back in Control, talks about his own journey to discovering deeply buried anxiety that was at the root of his pain. A successful surgeon, Dr. Hanscom had a loving family and healthy children, and on paper his life looked perfect. He was proud of his achievements, but in early life fraught with the chaos of living with a mother who frequently went into rages and lashed out at her children had left a deep mark on his nervous system, which resulted in his own 15-year battle with chronic pain. It was only when he finally began to become aware of his emotional state and worked toward discharging the stored stress he carried with him every day that his back finally healed and he was able to carry on with his busy and active life. Living in a disordered neural state can become so normal to you that you've completely lost awareness of it. It's important to note, too, that we pattern our nervous systems on our caregivers through something called co-regulation. When you're a baby, you mirror the neural state of your parents or primary caregivers. But a lot of us, like Dr. Hanscom, grew up with parents and family members who weren't well regulated themselves. They may have suffered from trauma, abuse, or neglect themselves, or even inherited these things passed down through generations. We know through the study of epigenetics that children of parents who suffered from trauma tend to have the same physiological markers of the trauma themselves. So you may have started out in life with a nervous system set point stuck in trauma, and then of course your own lived experiences play a role as well. All of the physical and emotional injuries that you've suffered influence your autonomic state. It's kind of like living with oxygen. You can't see it, all you can see is the absence of it by looking at objects that take up space. Similarly, in order to get an idea of your autonomic state, we can use the tool of attention to look for symptoms of nervous system dysregulation. Pain is of course one of the primary symptoms, and I've included a PDF list with other symptoms below this video. You can download the self-assessment to see where you score. Go ahead and do that now, and I will see you in the next video.